Hi everyone, this is Celine from Blue Calla Patterns. Welcome to video 2 for the Amaryllis Tote. In this video, I'm just going to be working on the rolled handles, so it might be a little bit confusing. So if you're looking at your pattern, I'm going to be doing steps 8 through 10 on page 4, and then I'm going to skip ahead to page 16 and I'm going to do steps 53 through 59. Now, because the bag isn't sewn, I won't be able to do step 60, but I will show you briefly how that's done. It's really not that complicated. So what you'll need, before you start, take your rolled handle pattern piece and this strap connector shape piece, and what I do is I put a little bit of Scotch tape over these the dots here because I want to punch out a hole in this location. I'll be using those to make marks on my pieces where I will be setting rivets. I'm just gonna punch out some holes. The reason why I put the tape is it just makes it a little bit stronger there so that I don't end up getting frayed paper in that spot. And just push out the paper. Okay. Now, there is a lot of gluing in this video, and I'll have to pause the video and let the glue dry in certain areas before I can continue. So what I will do first is you're going to take the 8 strap connector pieces. So this is step 8 in your pattern, and using 4 of the pieces, you're going to take your glue. I just use Fabri-Tac. And the important part here is to apply a thin layer of glue. Don't put a lot of thick glue because you might damage your cork or your vinyl. And I cover the entire surface because I want the edges of my connectors to be completely glued. And I wish I had some assembled connectors so I could show you. But my goal here is actually to, this will be your connectors later on, but I want the 2 layers of cork or vinyl to be glued completely all the way to the very edges, otherwise they're going to separate. Okay, so then I will take another piece. So I have, I'm not sure if you could see, but I have a thin layer, but it's everywhere. I want the glue to be over the entire piece. And then put a second piece. So I'm gluing these wrong sides together. And then I will put something heavy on top and I'll let them dry completely. And I will do the same for the 3 remaining pieces, and then we'll work on the gluing the rolled handle. Okay, while my strap connector pieces are drying, I'm going to take the rolled handle pieces and I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to apply a thin glue, but I don't want to apply it on the entire wrong side of the rolled handle piece. You're going to be gluing these pieces down. So you want to do the entire thinner part here, the narrower part, and maybe ½ an inch down the taller part of the handle. And again, it's really important that you get glue right to the very edge and that you apply a thin layer everywhere. Take your time, and it's really worth it to make sure you have glue right at the very edges. Okay, and then you take one of these pieces, and so you're gluing them wrong sides together. And again, you'll want to put something heavy on top and let it dry. and you're going to repeat this step with the rest of the pieces. These are your rolled handle end pieces. So you'll want to do the same thing, apply your glue, and then glue them wrong sides together on all 4 ends of your rolled handle pieces. Now when your strap connector pieces are dry, so you've glued them together, so once they're dry, then you take your strap connector pattern piece and you place it on top, and you will draw out the shape so for each set of 2 you're drawing the shape on top, and then you're going to take a very sharp pair of scissors and you're going to cut out the shape. Okay. So take your time and cut out the shape. And I make sure when I'm cutting that I'm cutting away all of the pen that I used to draw the outline. Okay. So there's one connector. Now make sure that you do a good job with the cutting because you want it to look nice. I think using sharp scissors is probably the most important part. Now, if you intend to use rivets, you can go ahead, pick the nicest side for your connector. I like this side better. This side. And then just draw the marks for your rivets right now. You don't have to use rivets if you don't want to, because you're actually going to be sewing these onto the bag. Okay, and then what you want to do next is you want to seal the edges. If you're using cork or vinyl, even if you're using leather, you're going to want to seal the edges, sorry. So there's a lot of different edge sealers that you can buy. I always hate saying you must use this brand. You have to use whatever's available to you and what will work for the leather or whatever material you're using. You want to use a product that's going to work. I use a product called Resaline. I just took off the cap so I can't actually show you what it looks like now. So this is what it looks like, and I buy it on Amazon. It's quite inexpensive and it lasts a long time. It's just an acrylic sealer, and I just use a cotton swab and I just run it along the edges. Now this one is black, but it comes in natural. I'm not sure if it comes in any other colors. I only buy it in black and natural, and anything that has a black backing, I'll use the black, and then anything that has a different color, I'll just use the natural. Okay, so I'm not sure if you probably can't see it, but so this would be unfinished, so unsealed edges, and these are the sealed edges. Might be difficult to see because it's black. So you're going to repeat exactly what I did for the remaining 3 strap connectors. And now hopefully our straps are dry. I'm just going to put the cap on this so I don't spill it. Okay, so now what we're going to do, so you have 2 handles, and you have the end pieces glued on. So you're going to, again, take your sharp pair of scissors and take your time and trim away, and you follow the shape of this end of your rope handle, your rolled handle. It's better here if you have slightly smaller scissors. My scissors are a bit too big. But what you want is to do a good job cutting so that the edges are perfectly aligned. Okay, and then again, I'm going to seal the edges. You don't seal the edges along the longer edge, because we're going to be cutting that away when we're sewing the rope inside the handle piece. For now, just seal the edge that you just cut from that end piece. And then you'll also want to use the rolled handle pattern piece, and you're going to transfer the location of your rivet. Now this time you do have to use a rivet. If you're not comfortable with rivets, you could always use a Chicago screw. I'm not going to cover the difference between those two because there's 1 million videos on YouTube covering this. And then I'm just going to seal the edges, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the remaining 3 ends of my rolled handles. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to step 10 in the pattern. I'm going to take one of my completed strap connectors and one of my rectangle rings, and you pass the end of your strap through the rectangle ring and then fold it. So make sure when you're folding it that this part of your strap is on the side that doesn't have your rivet marks, if you're using rivets. Now, in terms of how much you should fold it over, keep in mind that you're going to sew this to your bag, and you're going to want to sew across here beneath the ring. So you don't want to fold this down too much where your ring will interfere with where you are going to be sewing. So leave yourself a little bit of strap. Maybe, I think I have about, if you need to be specific, 3/8 of an inch. So above where it kind of goes narrower here, you want 3/8 of an inch of strap on this side. And then again, you're going to glue it down, and I'm just going to grab my wonder clips. Whoop, I took the whole cap off. That was not a good idea. Okay, go. And just put a bit of glue here. And fold it down. And then just use some clips to hold it in place until the glue dries. Now, when you're doing this with the other 3 strap connectors, just compare them, put them side by side, and make sure that you're folding them down the exact same amount, because you don't want some folded more than others and then the whole handle looks uneven. Okay, so repeat this with the other 3 strap connectors and then set them all aside so they can dry. And in the next video, we'll be sewing these to our bag. Okay, now we're going to step 56 of the pattern, and you're going to take one of your rolled handle pieces, and we need to draw a line down the center. Now this part here of the handle is 2 inches high, so I will draw a line 1 inch from one of the longer edges. Okay, and then once again, we're going to take our glue, and again, it's really important to put enough glue where the entire rope piece will be covered in glue. So if we take the rope pieces that we prepared in the last video, okay, I'm just going to take one for now, and I'm applying the glue again in a thin layer all along the center, and my strip of glue is about 1 inch high. So I'm going along the center and I'm doing 1 inch high of glue in a thin layer. Don't put it too thick because it could damage your cork or vinyl. I know it does take a bit of time, but it's worth it if you put enough glue so that your handle is glued in place, your rope is glued in place completely. Now make sure you don't go too far past here. You don't need to have glue all the way to the ends. You really want to just stop at this end piece that you glued on. There's my cap. There's my cap. Okay, and then take your rope piece and put it right on that center line. Make sure it's also the same distance at either end here. Okay, and then what I do is I fold the ends because I want this end here to be perfectly aligned. So I align these ends and I clip them in place. Okay, and then once you have both ends clipped, you're going to clip everything in between. And I put a lot of clips. Now you're going to do this for the second handle, and make sure you give them enough time to dry. Don't rush and try and sew it before the glue is dry. You really need to let that glue dry completely. And then we'll go over to my machine and I'll show you how to sew these. I'm using lots of clips and I'm trying to get the clip as close to the cording as I can. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside to dry, and then I'm going to prepare the second handle. So this is what it should look like at this point. Okay, so now I'm going to sew my my handle, my rolled handle. So hopefully the glue is dry. I'm going to start at one end here, and using my zipper foot, I'm going to start sewing right here, close to the cording. I'm going to back stitch. And then I'm going to keep sewing as close as I can to the cording that's glued inside the handle. If you are using something stickier, like a really sticky vinyl, try putting some Scotch tape on the underside of your zipper foot, and it should help it glide a little bit easier over your vinyl. I'm using this dark cork, so it actually doesn't really stick. Okay, so I'm starting at one end. I'm going to sew a couple of stitches, and then I'm going to back stitch. And then I don't rush this. I go slow, and I try to sew as close as I can to that cording. And take your clips off as you're sewing. And then you sew all along the entire length, and when you get to the other end, again you're going to back stitch. Make sure my stitches look nice. You definitely want to try and sew as close as you can to the cording, otherwise your cord inside will be kind of, there'll be like pockets of air, and then it doesn't look as nice. Okay, so I'm getting close to the other end. And then I'm just going to backstitch. Okay. So this is the handle that we just finished sewing. You're going to, again, take a really sharp pair of scissors, and you're going to trim away the seam allowance, and you're going to cut actually quite close to your stitching, maybe 1/8 of an inch away from the stitches. And then once you've cut that away, you're going to seal this long edge that you just cut. Don't go too fast here, because if you cut your stitches, you'll be very upset. Okay. That away, and then again you're going to seal. My hands are all black now. And then you're going to repeat all of these steps to sew the second rolled handle. Okay. All right, and then I'll be showing this at the end, but what you would normally do when you're going to attach, you just slip it through this way. And then remember the mark that we made for our rivet. You'll want to, I kind of try and stick it right, I open it up and I stick it right in there. And then I punch the hole at the mark that I made, and then I set my rivet, or you can use your Chicago screw if you want, and that will be your handle.